Welcome to the Legacy with good Gianluca. Yeah, I just had a fun. But yeah, as I was saying, there's gonna be the oldest I've ever been and the youngest I will ever be. So as I just thought of that, I was just reflecting of legacy in terms of family, in terms of what do you call it, like the family situation of South Sudanese in diaspora or in this generation in particular, where solving problems is very hard and everybody would just look for a quick way out, you know. As I was reflecting in like family back home, everybody used to deal with things as a community, as a collective, where people would sit down and talk about stuff and then try to solve them. But now everybody's on their own, so people just would want to just leave, when things go hard. People want to just leave when they find out their partner is not what it's supposed to be. People just want to leave, and then I thought of also the fact that people just go, all right, they leave someone and then go and find, instead of finding a better partner next time, they go and find even the worst, but at the beginning obviously they think the person was better, and then you find out, okay, this person is not the person they thought they were looking for, and guess what, they will leave again and then go look for something else instead of looking for the things that they like from the person at the beginning, whether it's like on the male side or the female side. It's just more of like, okay, how can you solve this problem and move on? It's very hard to talk about problems, obviously, because this is a generation where a lot of people would want to avoid problems rather than talk about them. And this is the generation where there's no community to where the community doesn't really get involved in like solving family issues. Instead, people go on TikTok and talk about their problem, or like put their issues out there, and then it doesn't fix anything, So if we focus on like saying what went wrong rather than looking what can we do to fix it, it's not going to solve anything. It's not going to make it any better. So I was just reflecting on that, and I thought I'd make an episode to talk about, I was also thinking like, should we develop something like terms and conditions, like within marriage or relationships in general, where you lay down, okay, this is what I'm looking for in a partner, whether it's a male or female again. You say your side, the other person say their side, and then so you know what you're getting into. If they say, okay, you know what, I don't think I can do this, these are not my values, then you already know, okay, you shouldn't go any further, because to find out things earlier, because later on you'll be like, obviously I didn't know this person going to turn out like that, because obviously the beginning of a relationship is always sweet, and then it gets hectic at the end. So it's good. I don't know, you guys let me know if you think that's a good idea to have terms and conditions, about the relationships. I think, to be honest, for me, I think it might be a good thing, because at least you say, okay, what's your values, for example, So if I was to use myself as an example, I can't speak for every man because I don't really know what's in their mind, but I would say the first most important thing to me is respect. If I feel respected, it's more important than love itself. Second thing is appreciation, because if you're doing things for the family and you realize you're not even appreciated, then what's the point of doing them? You just like stop doing them, and just move on with your life. As I said, like, it's easier this time to kind of just avoid things, because if you're going to talk about them and they're not going to get better, because everybody's like on defense mode and stuff, and there's no community where we sit people down and solve it like back home where we used to kind of do that. So we're in between the new world Australian or Western way of fixing stuff, where obviously if that's not the right partner for you, you leave, you go to the next one. We never had that in our community back then. And I just thought of it like, damn, what it took my parents to stay together for a long time, where here people can't even last years or even months sometimes. So it's just fascinating, And also, what can we do to make it better? Who is the real issues, like who has the biggest issues? Like females, if I ask females, they will say men are the problem. If I ask men can say females are the problem. Some of them will say the Western world that give them the mothers or the females more power is the problem. So if I ask what's the problem, everybody will have things to say in the comment below. But if I ask what's the solution, that's the mystery part. So I think we should work more on that, like find solutions rather than just focusing on the problems. Because what's the point of talking about problems if you're not gonna find a solution about it, So yeah, I just thought of reflecting on that, and as the root of the problems, like causing our community in Australia or in diaspora in particular, because a lot of single parents, and it's not easy doing that. So we have to be mindful of what they have to go through in a daily basis just to provide for the family, whether it's through work, whether it's through their education, whether it's through their sports, what they have to bring in the table in the house, how to even manage the kids, because we have like a big household in our community. So yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy, but I think communication is a key. And if you haven't got into a relationship already, then I think it's good to lay out what's your values at the entry level of the relationships, and you have to stay firm with them, because if the other person, the other party or the other partner disregard them, it means they're not really important to them, and that should be already a tick box or a red flag, whatever you call it to you, because if I say, all right, if I say respect is very important, and then the other person says, no, you showing the love and affection to me is more important, it means, you know what I mean? If I agree on that and I drop this one, it means maybe down the line they might disrespect me, because they'll think respect is not really a big thing like that, And what does respect mean even, And before even you talk about someone else respecting you, you should think, am I being respectful to myself? Because if you are being respectful to yourself, then everyone else should be able to respect you, because you respect yourself, which means the way you carry yourself, the way you represent yourself, the way you, I don't know, it could mean anything, the way you dress, the way you talk, the way you articulate yourself in a certain ways in situations where you're angry, where you're happy, where you think, you know what I mean? All that can kind of put a sense of level or respect to you, and that will mean something. So yeah, if you think that all your past relationships, they're been wrong because the people were the problem and you never had a part of it, then you might be the actual problem. Because if you always think people are the wrong ones and you're the right one, then there's something about you that you haven't really discovered, and maybe you should sit with yourself for enough time trying to discover that what's the problem, or why people kind of treat you the way you don't want to be treated, you know. So self-reflection is like very important, I guess. So if you do a lot of self-reflect and just sit in the park the way I'm sitting, you know, I'm just sitting in the park, enjoying the weather, you know, it's a sunny day today, normally it's cold. So it's good to just, you know, sit, have a thing, go for a walk, go in nature. A lot of answers will answer themselves. So it's part of just you having that self-care time for yourself. And when your mind is clear, you'll come back and be ready to kind of, you know, receive more information, to interact with people and do all the positive stuff. But if you just kind of locked into one particular thing, you need like a time off, you know, vacation, going for walk, camping, whatever that is in your head. But like movement kind of clear your head, you know, reduces stress, whatever else, you know, you can search it up. Otherwise, so yeah, I thought I'd just reflect on that and talk about how the families are going, you know, with all these things happening, you know, the younger kids are deep into crimes, you know. There's a lot of good ones as well, so we have to be mindful that it's not all of us that are doing the things that we're not supposed to be doing, you know. And we have to be also aware that if the people that are already in deep into the crime, how do they see themselves? I always wonder that, like you know what I mean? Because for us, we might see it like, okay, it's a criminal mind, they're doing bad and stuff. How, if I was to go on their side and see from their lens, what would I see? You know, I always wonder that, like, what would I see? Would I see them that they're blaming their parents for how they are? Are they blaming their friends for, are they loving how they're living, you know? Would they want to get out? Would they want to leave whatever they're doing if they had a choice? Or are they forced to go on it? And also the kids that are not in it, how do they feel about that, you know? Do they think it's something good, like they would want to try one day because it looks cool? Or would they think, I need to stay away from it, or what can I do to kind of fix that, or to make sure my younger siblings don't go on that, you know? But it's always, everything starts with the family, because, you know, if you have kids, you know, regardless, you know, staying with your partner, you have to come together for the kids. So I always think that's very important, because if you can't be there for your kids, you know, everything that could go wrong could possibly happen, because that is just, there's a space that is missing, and that space need to be filled in a way. So, and it takes both parents to kind of fix that part, if that makes sense. So yeah, it takes time to kind of, you know what I mean? And obviously you have to start it with yourself, where you take accountability and say, you know what, I want to make a difference. I want to change the way my family is, you know. But if you say, I can't really do much, then, you know what I mean? It's going to go with the flow, and you never know what the flow has planned for you, you know? It's better to react before it gets worse, you know? If you see a problem that's starting soon, it's better to kind of come up with a solution, you know? It's kind of getting cold, but me. Yeah. By the way, this is the first time I let my hair back like this. Usually I'll be wearing hats and stuff. I wonder how it looks. My hair is growing. Just got like a little ponytail. I don't know if you can see it in there, but yeah, good generation. But yeah, now to get back on that, it's like, how do we fix this? You know, as I said before, you know, let me know if you think having terms and conditions would be a good solution, or a good to start with. Like, you know how people that get married, they write their vows and whatnot and stuff, you know? Like, if I was to write vows, you know, you should be able to write vows like, okay, what happens after you're gone, you know? Should your wife marry another man or not, you know? Would you want them to stay a widow forever, or would you allow them to marry another man? Or if your husband dies, for example, I mean, if the opposite side, like if you are the wife and your husband dies, that's what I just talked about. But if you're the husband and your wife dies, doesn't mean you can't marry someone else, or doesn't mean you can move on, you know what I mean? In my part, I would say, bro, move on, you know what I mean? I can't stop someone else's happiness because they were tied to me, you know what I mean? There was this quote that I'm trying to remember. In Arabic it says, Al-Maut Al-Hayy Abqa min al-Mayyit, which means, the living are more important than the dead. Because if you die, obviously, like, it's sad and whatnot, but life goes on, the same way I said it last time. Life goes on, and we need to make peace with it, because as Kanye West said, death is the only thing that is promised in this world. Everything else is not. You can't promise your wife or your husband to love you forever. You can't promise them to stay with you forever. You can try to make it happen, but if it doesn't happen, you know what I mean? It's out of your hand. You can't really force something that is not working. But you also need to kind of do your homework, tick your boxes before you get into deep with it, because having kids and then having to raise them on your own is the hardest thing you could also do, and it's also unfair for the kids. Imagine how they're going to look in society where they see, let's say, for example, their friends that have their kids' friends, or let's say they have their parents that come out there, and then they don't have parents, or they just see their mothers and stuff. Especially little kids, they're always curious. They will be asking like, oh, how come I don't have a dad? Or how come my dad is not around? Or how come my mom is not around? Or how come I'm staying with my grandma? You know what I mean? Because they're missing that parenthood love, parenthood guidance, to tell them not to do this, to play with them in the park, all that. Is that the little things, they literally matter, So yeah, the sun is moving away from me. I'm trying to, get the African melanin shining through the sun, but it's acting up. But anyways, back to the topic. So the main thing I'm trying to get out of this video, I want whoever sees this, I want to see what you guys think about including terms and conditions in your relationship or in your marriage. For example, if you go on your first date, you lay out, okay, this is my values, this is my conditions, this is my terms, you know what I mean? What do you think about them? And then your partner will say, all right, I might agree with this. This one I'm neutral, the other one is not that important to me and stuff. And then obviously you're not going to get everything like 10 out of 10 tick, but you have like levels. Okay, this is number 1 important to me, this is number 2, and that's number 9, and that's 10. So if you get 10 and 9 and 8 and tick, it's not as important as number 1 is ticked to you. So if you get the number 1 ticked off, I think you should go with it, because you're not gonna get, no one is perfect, Imagine if we're all perfect. You know how boring that would be? Like to find someone that is exactly like you, have the same mentality. It's boring as hell, because there's no any interest. There's nothing interesting. You love people for who they are, because, you know what I mean? When you were friends with them, for example, or when you met them, you like them like that. So if you could like the people for who they are, that shouldn't change, You just have to know, okay, you guys have the same core value that you think it can take you to the next life, You could also table things very early. Okay, what do you think about kids? How are you going to raise them? You need to kind of experiment and ask a lot of questions so you can find out whether that person is the right person for you. And you can literally find out from the first date, or the first time you even talk to them, before even you you decide to go out on date with them, because obviously the first impression is looks, vibe, how they talk to you and whatnot, but if I was talking about myself, it's more about how you represent yourself. If I represent myself as a fuckboy, for example, you know what I mean? I might find myself a fuck girl. So, excuse my language, but that's literally what it is, plainly. You know what I mean? And some girls might not think they represent themselves as a fuck girl, but if you show too much, then it switches the man's mind. Like, okay, instead of looking to you as a potential partner, they're looking at you as a potential partner or a girl to hook up with, possibly to have sex with. And after that, guess what? Dopamine crashes. No matter how beautiful you are, how smart you are, whatever, you know what I mean? That already don't matter. They got the cookie, as they say in the movies. So if that happens, boom, you dumped. So I think, at least I'm gonna get attacked for this, but I feel like it's more to do with the woman before the men, because men choose women, and you're chosen from the way you represent yourself. You know what I mean? Like, I'll treat a girl the way they represent themselves rather than the way I want them to be treated, because I can't do that for long. If that's how they are from the beginning, then, you know what I mean, it's going to be like that until then, or who knows how long. But yeah, so I think you representing yourself well is very important, and also being vocal about your values. What do you think is very important in life? What do you think is important to you? What do you think is important about family? Even, let's say, if you don't want to have family right now, or if you don't want to have family at all, it's good to table that down, because let's say your partner would want to have a family and you don't want to have family. Obviously, what's the point of dating if you guys not gonna, you know what I mean, have an end game? So you need to kind of communicate that early. So communication is obviously very important. And then solving problems as you go along the way. There's going to be a lot of problems, so, and you have to be able to kind of communicate or solve them, and so you have to be mindful also, it's only going to be you two that are going to be solving it, because the olden days community that solve problems is not there anymore, sadly. But that's literally how it is. If I have a problem with my partner, it's up to me to kind of solve it. It's up to us to kind of solve it. And if we can't solve it, guess what? Everyone move on. I'll go get someone else. We have a problem. We'll move on. And you wonder why there's single mothers everywhere, single fathers everywhere, and everybody's running away from responsibilities, because responsibilities are hard, obviously. But if you can, you know what I mean, sit down and try to find out the problem from yourself first before you blame someone else, I think it makes it easier. Because if you can see what you're doing wrong, you should be able to understand what the other person is coming from. So yeah, let's hold each other accountable and trying to change how our community have a lot of single parents, kids with no full parents, with single parents. And I think that would be a root cause, or the root solution, or the first solution to our problems that are facing our community, to do with families and kids and the crimes and stuff, Yeah. So I thought I'll just talk about that for this topic. And to conclude, I just want to say a huge thank you to all the people that send me messages, gave me their feedbacks about all the episode I had. I'm sorry, the last episode I had, the intro music was too loud. I had that, a lot of people said that to me, and I kind of realized at the end, I put it down, but somehow it didn't work. I'm still new at editing and stuff, so forgive me. I'll try to do better on the next one. But it also, I'm very kind of proud of myself, because I've never been on the camera like that, and it shows that how much I'm improving, even though it's still not perfect yet. But There's things that gets better, trying to learn to use more hand gestures. I'm not really that hand gestures person. So yeah, it takes a lot of practice. If I could do this every single day, it gets better. The next one gets better than the one before. And as I said, today is the oldest I've ever been, and it's also the youngest I will ever be. So make the most of it. Look after yourself, because if you're good, you can be able to help other people. So yeah, I appreciate everybody that gave me the feedback, and yeah, let's do better. This was good, Gianluca from Sudo Legacy. Peace.
Thank you for joining us on Sudo Legacy. Remember, your legacy isn't what you leave behind, it's what you build today. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep leaving a legacy worth remembering.